The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime gleamed under the light of 3 suns as beings from across the galaxy gathered for their most important meeting. Ships of every shape and size filled the orbital platforms around the massive space station. Some looked like twisted metal sculptures, others resembled living creatures, and a few were nothing more than balls of pure energy floating in containment fields. Inside the main chamber, thousands of alien representatives took their places. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert hundreds of different languages into something everyone could understand. The smell was strange too, a mix of methane, ozone, and things that had no names in any human language. At the center of it all sat the Arcani, the oldest race anyone could remember. Their leader, HFY, was so ancient that his gray skin looked like worn stone. His people had been watching the stars since before most of the other races had even discovered fire. When the Arcani spoke, it was tradition to listen, even if nobody really believed their warnings anymore. Commander Thrak of the Vorthak Empire adjusted his heavy armor and checked his weapons. His people were warriors, standing 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and skin like black metal. They had conquered 17 star systems in the past century alone. Next to him, the Christek collective representative flickered like a living rainbow, pure energy held together by technology that most races couldn't even understand. The meeting began with the usual boring reports about trade routes and border disputes. Representatives yawned or did whatever their species did when they were bored. Some of the gas-based life forms started to drift toward the ceiling. Then Elder HFY stood up slowly, his joints creaking like old wood. The chamber fell silent. This was the part of the meeting everyone expected but nobody took seriously, the traditional warning about some new threat to galactic peace. My friends, HFY began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. I come before you today with a warning about a species that will change everything we know about this galaxy. A few representatives rolled their eyes or made whatever gesture their species used to show they weren't impressed. They had heard this before. Last time it was the Gornaks, who turned out to be peaceful farmers. Before that, it was the Zelani, who were so afraid of conflict they hid underground whenever they saw a spaceship. They call themselves humans, the elder continued, and they come from a small blue and green world orbiting a yellow star in what you consider the Outer Rim territories. Commander Thrak couldn't help himself. He stood up, his armor clanking, and spread all 4 arms wide. Elder HFY, with all due respect to your wisdom and years, we have studied this species. Our scouts have observed them for months. They have barely learned to travel between stars, and when they do, their ships are slow and clumsy. Their weapons still use chemical explosions to throw small pieces of metal at their enemies. Their most powerful bombs work by splitting atoms, technology we mastered thousands of years ago. Laughter rippled through the chamber, or the equivalent of laughter for species that didn't have mouths. The representative from the Christek collective pulsed brighter with amusement. Our energy scanners show they still fight wars using metal vehicles that roll on the ground and flying machines with spinning blades. How could such primitive beings possibly threaten civilizations that have learned to reshape matter itself? More voices joined in. They haven't even learned to control gravity, called out someone from the back. Their computers are bigger than our smallest ships, shouted another. They still get sick from tiny organisms. But HFY waited patiently for the noise to die down. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet but somehow it reached every corner of the vast chamber. You see their technology and judge them by our standards. You see their weapons and compare them to ours. You see their ships and find them wanting. But you are not seeing what makes them truly dangerous. He paused and looked around the chamber with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Their greatest weapon is not their technology. It is not their numbers, though they breed quickly. It is not their physical strength, though they are surprisingly tough for such soft creatures. Their greatest weapon is something none of you understand because none of your species possess it. The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the energy beings had stopped their constant flickering. They refused to accept that something cannot be done, HFY said simply. When faced with the impossible, other species adapt to it, work around it, or accept it as a natural law. Humans look at the impossible and ask not why can't this be done, but how can we make this possible? They see our mighty civilizations and do not think we must serve them or we must hide from them. They think we must learn from them and then do better. The old Arcani moved to the center of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the silence. We have watched them for only a short time, but already we see the pattern. When they encounter a problem, they do not seek the traditional solution. They create new solutions that no one has ever thought of before. When they are told something is impossible, they smile and begin working on making it possible. Commander Thrak shook his massive head. Elder, even if what you say is true, what could they possibly do against our combined might? We have weapons that can destroy entire planets. We have shields that can stop any attack. We have fleets that number in the millions. Zephi looked at the Vorthak commander with something that might have been pity. And that, my friend, is exactly why they will defeat us. Because while you are thinking about your weapons and shields and fleets, they are thinking about things you would never consider. They will find ways to turn your strengths into weaknesses, your numbers into chaos, and your certainty into confusion. The warning was officially recorded in the Council's database, filed under traditional Arcani predictions, and promptly forgotten by everyone present, everyone except a figure watching from the shadows in the observation gallery. Marcus Webb, intelligence operative for the United Earth government, made a mental note to recommend that humanity accelerate their military research programs. As the Council moved on to other business, none of them noticed the human quietly leaving through a maintenance tunnel, already composing a message that would reach Earth in 3 days. 3 years had passed since the Galactic Council meeting when Captain James Harrison received the message that would change everything. He was sitting in the command chair of the UES Defiance, a human exploration vessel patrolling the edge of the Kepler Belt colonies. The ship was nothing fancy, built from Earth steel with fusion engines that other species would consider ancient technology. Captain, we're getting a transmission on all frequencies, announced Lieutenant Emma Stone from the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, with short red hair and the kind of steady voice that stayed calm even when things went bad. It's in our language, sir. Someone learned English. Harrison was a career military man who had worked his way up from private to captain the hard way. He had fought in 3 different wars on Earth and had volunteered for the colony patrol because he thought space would be peaceful. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. Put it through, Lieutenant. The voice that filled the bridge was deep and mechanical, translated by some alien device that made every word sound like it was being spoken through broken glass. Human vessels, this is Commander Greetal of the Vorthak 3rd Fleet. You will immediately cease all operations in this system and prepare for inspection. Your species will submit to the authority of the Vorthak Empire and accept our guidance toward proper civilization. Harrison looked around his bridge at his crew of 30 men and women. They were miners, engineers, and farmers who had come to the asteroid belt to build new lives among the rocks and ice. Behind them, scattered across dozens of asteroids, were 30,000 more humans doing the same thing, building homes, raising families, and working hard to survive in the cold emptiness of space. Response, sir? Asked Lieutenant Stone. Harrison thought about his orders, about the regulations, and about what Earth Command would want him to say. Then he thought about the families living in the mining colonies, about the children who had never seen Earth but called this place home, and about the message from Marcus Webb that had reached them 6 months ago warning that something like this might happen. Send this message, Lieutenant. Tell Commander Greetal that surrender is not in our vocabulary. If he wants this system, he'll have to take it. What happened next made no sense to anyone who understood how galactic warfare was supposed to work. The Vorthak had overwhelming firepower, superior numbers, and technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. By every military calculation, the human resistance should have lasted maybe 6 hours. Instead, the asteroid belt became a nightmare for the Vorthak forces. The humans didn't try to fight the alien warships in open space where they would be destroyed in minutes. Instead, they disappeared into the maze of rocks and ice that they knew better than anyone else in the galaxy. Commander Greetal was a veteran of dozens of successful conquests. His black metal skin bore the scars of 100 battles, and his 4 arms could operate weapon systems faster than most organic beings could think. But he had never fought an enemy like this. The humans took their mining equipment and turned it into weapons. Asteroid haulers became ramming ships that smashed into Vorthak vessels before exploding. Mining charges that were meant to break up rocks became bombs that damaged alien hull armor. Drilling equipment became improvised weapons that could punch holes in Vorthak personal armor. They're using industrial machinery as military hardware, Greetal reported to his superiors, his voice filled with confusion. They've modified cargo haulers to carry explosive charges and are ramming our patrol ships. When we try to pursue them, they scatter into the asteroid field where our larger ships cannot follow. But that was just the beginning. The humans did something that no other species had ever done. They started learning from the Vorthak technology even while fighting against it. When Vorthak energy weapons disabled human ships, human engineers would study the wreckage and figure out how the weapons worked. Within days, they were building crude copies. Within weeks, they were improving on the original designs. Private Daniel Cooper was a 22-year-old mining engineer from Texas who had joined the Colony Patrol because he wanted adventure. He got more adventure than he bargained for when his squad was surrounded by Vorthak soldiers near the Ceres mining station. "Surrender, human," demanded the Vorthak squad leader, pointing 4 different weapons at Cooper's head. "Your resistance is pointless. We have superior technology and numbers. Submit now and your death will be quick." Cooper looked at the alien warrior who stood twice as tall as him and was covered in armor that could probably stop a tank shell. The smart thing to do would be to give up. The logical thing would be to accept defeat. Instead, Cooper did something that no Vorthak had ever experienced from a conquered species. He smiled. "You know what your problem is?" Cooper said, his hands slowly moving toward the mining charges on his belt. "You think having better weapons means you're better fighters. But you've never fought anyone who refuses to lose." The explosion that followed took out the entire Vorthak squad and half the mining station. Cooper didn't survive, but his message was recorded by his helmet camera and broadcast across every human communication channel in the system. When Commander Greetal finally managed to capture some human prisoners, he expected the usual behavior from a defeated enemy: fear, pleading, offers to collaborate. Instead, he found himself facing Sergeant Rebecca Walsh, a former Marine who looked him straight in the eye and said, "You think this is the worst we can do? You haven't seen anything yet." Greetal had conquered 17 different species in his military career. He had seen fear, anger, desperation, and resignation in the eyes of his enemies. But he had never seen what he was seeing now in the humans' eyes: absolute certainty that somehow, some way, the humans were going to win. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Greetal felt something he had never experienced before. He felt afraid. The human was still smiling. The news about the human problem spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. In communication centers across 1,000 worlds, military leaders and scientists gathered around holographic displays showing battle reports from the Kepler belt. What they saw made no sense according to everything they knew about warfare and conquest. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in her office aboard New Geneva Station, Earth's most advanced military research facility. She was a small woman with dark hair and sharp eyes who had spent her career studying alien psychology. The reports coming across her desk were unlike anything in galactic history. "Admiral Kane," she called to her superior through the communication system, "you need to see this." Admiral Thomas Kane was a big man with gray hair and hands scarred from his early days as an engineer. He had been chosen to lead Earth's military expansion because he understood both fighting and building. He walked into Rodriguez's office and looked at the screens covering every wall. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "Sir, we're tracking 4 to 7 separate first contact incidents over the past 6 months. Every major galactic civilization has tried to either conquer or study us. And sir, every single one of them has failed in ways they never expected." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Rodriguez touched a control and one of the screens lit up with a battle report. "The Christek Collective tried to overwhelm our Mars colonies with pure energy bombardment. They are masters of energy manipulation. They can create weapons that turn matter into plasma with a single shot." What happened? Colony engineer Michael Foster not only survived the attack, he figured out how their energy weapons worked. Within 3 days, his team had not only copied the technology, they improved it. "Our energy cannons now exceed Christek specifications by 30%. Kane couldn't help but smile. Michael always was good at taking things apart and putting them back together better. Rodriguez switched to another screen. "Then there's the Zenari incident. They are a hive mind species, billions of individuals connected into one shared consciousness. They thought human minds would be easy to absorb and control. I'm guessing they were wrong." "Very wrong, sir." Captain Rachel Turner was leading a patrol when they tried to assimilate her consciousness. Instead of fighting it, she did something no one expected. She focused on the most chaotic thing she could think of. Which was a kindergarten class she used to teach on Earth. 25 6-year-old children on a sugar rush during art time. Kane laughed despite himself. And? The Zenari Collective couldn't process that level of organized chaos. Human thoughts, dreams, fears, and individual personalities created such discord in their shared mind that 3 entire Zenari dreadnoughts shut down their mental networks and fled the system. Their collective is still trying to understand what happened. The reports kept coming. The Altrian Republic had tried to negotiate with humans using their advanced diplomatic protocols, only to discover that humans negotiated by completely ignoring the rules. Professor David Chen's team had somehow convinced the Alterians to trade their quantum drive technology for what the aliens thought were primitive human art pieces. The Alterians didn't realize until later that the art contained hidden sensor networks that gave humans complete blueprints of Alterian ship designs. "They're calling us the Chaos Species," Rodriguez explained. "Every race that encounters us comes away changed. The ordered, logical species can't understand how we function. We break their predictions and disrupt their careful plans just by being ourselves." Kane studied a tactical display showing human colonies throughout the Outer Rim. Each one was different, adapted to local conditions in ways that made no sense to alien observers. "What's our current technological status?" "That's the interesting part, sir. We're advancing faster than anyone thought possible. Every alien species that attacks us teaches us something new. We now have Vorthak armor plating, Christek energy weapons, Zenari biotechnology, and Alterian quantum drives. But we're not just copying them, we're combining them in ways their creators never imagined." She showed him a video of the latest human patrol ship. It looked nothing like the simple vessels they had started with. The hull used Vorthak armor techniques but was shaped using human aerodynamic principles. The weapons were based on Christek energy systems but powered by fusion reactors that humans had improved far beyond their original Earth designs. The engines combined Alterian quantum technology with human mechanical engineering. "We call it adaptive evolution," Rodriguez continued. "Our equipment learns and evolves during combat. Each engagement makes us stronger and more unpredictable." Kane watched footage from a recent battle where human fighters had encountered a Gornax patrol fleet. The Gornax were known for their defensive capabilities, shields that could stop any known weapon. But the human ships had done something unprecedented. Instead of trying to break through the shields, they had somehow convinced the Gornax that they were actually friendly traders, then disabled the ships from the inside using Gornax hospitality protocols. "How did Captain Morrison pull that off?" Kane asked. "Apparently he brought cookies," Rodriguez replied with a straight face. The Gornax had never encountered baked goods before and were so fascinated that they invited the humans aboard to learn more about human culture. Morrison's crew disabled their ships while teaching them to make chocolate chip cookies. Kane shook his head in amazement. "Any word from our intelligence networks?" Marcus Webb reports that the Galactic Council is planning something big. Multiple species are setting aside their differences to coordinate a response to what they are calling the human expansion. "They are scared, sir. For the first time in galactic history, the established powers are genuinely afraid of a newcomer species." Kane looked out at the stars through the station's main viewing port. Somewhere out there, dozens of alien civilizations were trying to figure out how to stop humanity spread across the galaxy. What they didn't understand was that every attempt to stop humans only made them stronger, more creative, and more determined. "Doctor, send a message to all our colony commanders. Tell them to keep doing exactly what they are doing. Be friendly, be helpful, be human. And when someone tries to stop them, remind them that impossible is just another word for challenge accepted." Rodriguez smiled as she began composing the message. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you tried to contain a species that thrived on being underestimated. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives who had spent centuries maintaining polite diplomatic relations were now shouting at each other across the great chamber of Nexus Prime. The crystal dome above them flickered with warning lights as urgent messages poured in from across the galaxy. Ambassador Veldar of the Vorthak Empire slammed his armored fist on his speaking platform so hard that the metal cracked. "They have taken our weapons and made them better," he roared through the translation systems. "Human vessels now carry energy shields that are stronger than our own." The representative from the Christek Collective pulsed an angry red color. "Our most advanced energy manipulation techniques have been copied and improved. They are creating weapons we never imagined possible by combining our technology with their crude mechanical systems." Elder Zephai sat quietly in the center of the chaos, watching the panic spread through the assembled representatives. His ancient face showed no surprise, only the sad wisdom of someone who had tried to warn others about a storm they refused to see coming. Fleet Admiral Crix of the Nexri Defense Force stood on his platform, his blue skin pale with worry. 3 days ago, a single human exploration vessel entered our territory. When we sent a squadron to investigate, they disabled our ships using gravitational weapons that bend space itself. Our scientists say the technology should not even be possible. "How many ships did they have?" asked someone from the crowd. "One," Crix replied quietly. "One ship against 12 of our best vessels. They turned our own weapons against us and left us floating helpless in space while their captain sent us a message apologizing for the inconvenience. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Species that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years were reporting the same impossible story over and over. Human forces that should have been easily defeated were not just winning, they were making it look easy. Commander Thrak of the Vorthak military stood up, his forearms spread wide to demand attention. Honored Council, I have fought these humans personally. Their individual warriors are weaker than ours, their ships are smaller, their numbers are fewer. But they fight like no species we have ever encountered. He activated a holographic display showing the battle at Kepler Station. Watch this engagement. Our forces had them surrounded, outnumbered 10-1. By every military calculation, they should have surrendered or been destroyed within minutes. The hologram showed human fighters scattering in all directions, using asteroids and space debris as cover. But instead of running away, they began working together in ways that made no tactical sense. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Weapons that should have been useless became deadly in human hands. They do not fight to win, Thrak continued, his voice filled with confusion. They fight as if losing is simply not an option. When their weapons fail, they improvise new ones. When their ships are damaged, they turn the damage into an advantage. When we destroy their equipment, they take pieces of our equipment and somehow make it work for them. Dr. Zara Vex of the Altean Science Council activated another display. We have studied their psychology extensively. Most species, when faced with superior technology, either submit or seek to copy that technology exactly. Humans do something different. They take our technology and ask, what else can this do? Then they find uses for it that we never considered. The display showed human colonies throughout the Outer Rim. Each one looked different, adapted to local conditions in ways that violated standard colonization procedures. On ice worlds, they had built cities under the surface using Vorthak tunneling technology. On desert planets, they had created water systems using crystek energy manipulation. On gas giant moons, they had constructed floating cities using antigrav technology they had somehow improved beyond its original specifications. They are not just expanding, Dr. Vex continued. They are evolving. Every encounter with our species teaches them something new, and they incorporate that knowledge in ways that make them stronger and more unpredictable. Elder Zephai finally stood, and the chamber fell silent. His voice was quiet but carried clearly to every corner of the vast space. Honored Council, you are finally beginning to understand what my people tried to warn you about. But you are still thinking about this problem in the wrong way. He walked slowly to the center of the chamber, his ancient joints creaking with each step. You see their technological advancement and think this is about weapons and ships. You see their tactical victories and think this is about military strategy. You are wrong. This is about something much more fundamental. The old Arcani looked around at the assembled representatives with eyes that had watched civilizations rise and fall. Humans do not see the universe the same way we do. When we encounter a problem, we look for the accepted solution, the traditional approach, the way things have always been done. When humans encounter a problem, they assume there must be a better way and begin looking for it immediately. He gestured toward the displays showing human activities across the galaxy. You built your civilizations by mastering the rules of physics, chemistry, and warfare. Humans are succeeding because they refuse to accept that rules cannot be changed. Where you see limitations, they see possibilities. Where you see the end of what is possible, they see the beginning of what might be. Commander Thrak stood again, his massive form towering over the other representatives. Then what do you suggest, Elder? Should we simply accept that these primitive newcomers will dominate the galaxy? Zephai looked at the Vorthak commander with something that might have been pity. I suggest you prepare for war, Commander. Because whether you choose to fight them or not, they will continue expanding, learning, and growing stronger. The only question is whether you will face them as enemies who underestimate them, or as allies who might learn from them. The vote was unanimous. Every major civilization in the galaxy would contribute ships and weapons to the largest military fleet in recorded history. 10,000 vessels carrying the combined might of 40 different species would gather at the edge of human space. What none of them knew was that Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, working deep cover in the Galactic Intelligence Division, had already transmitted complete details of their battle plans to Admiral Kane on Earth. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you cornered a species that considered impossible odds to be an invitation rather than a warning. The largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of the Sol system like a metallic storm cloud blocking out the stars. 10,000 warships from 40 different civilizations hung in the darkness of space, their combined firepower capable of destroying entire planets. Each vessel represented centuries of technological advancement and military expertise. Admiral Thomas Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, Earth's newest flagship, studying the massive enemy formation through the main viewscreen. The human fleet numbered only 800 ships, a force that should have been overwhelmed in minutes by the alien armada facing them. "Admiral," reported Captain Lisa Morgan from the tactical station, "enemy fleet is maintaining position at the system's edge. They're probably expecting us to come out and meet them in traditional battle formation." Kane was a man who had spent his entire career thinking differently than his enemies expected. He had earned his rank not by following standard procedures, but by finding solutions that no one else had considered. Today would be no different. "How long until Captain Hayes reaches his position?" Kane asked. 15 minutes, sir," replied Lieutenant Commander David Park from Communications. "All fighter squadrons report ready for Operation Chaos Theory." The plan Kane had developed would have been considered insane by any military academy in the galaxy. Instead of meeting the massive alien fleet head-on, human forces had scattered throughout the solar system over the past week. Some ships hid behind asteroids in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Others used the gas giants' moons as cover. A few had even positioned themselves near the sun, using solar radiation to mask their energy signatures. Commander Greetal of the Vorthak forces studied his tactical displays with growing confusion. "Where are they?" he demanded of his sensor operators. "Long-range scans show human ships throughout their system, but they are not forming any recognizable battle formation." "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "our intelligence suggests they have less than 1,000 vessels total. Perhaps they are attempting to hide their weakness by spreading their forces thin." Greetal had fought humans before and learned to never underestimate them. "No. They are planning something. Order all ships to maintain defensive formation and advance slowly into the system." The alien fleet began its careful advance, expecting to encounter human resistance at any moment. Instead, they found empty space and silence. It wasn't until they had moved deep into the solar system that Kane's trap began to close. Captain Robert Hayes commanded a squadron of 50 fighters equipped with artificial intelligence systems that had been modified using captured alien technology. Each ship could learn and adapt during combat, becoming more effective with every engagement. His fighters had been hiding in the asteroid belt for 3 days, waiting for this moment. "All units, this is Phoenix Leader," Hayes broadcast on the secure human frequency. "Target the Vorthak command ships first. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them, we're trying to confuse them." The first phase of the attack began with human fighters emerging from hiding places throughout the system. But instead of attacking the alien fleet directly, they began using gravity weapons to push asteroids and space debris into the enemy formations. The effect was immediate and devastating. Massive alien warships that were designed to fight other warships suddenly found themselves dodging chunks of rock moving at incredible speeds. Their sophisticated targeting systems, built to track enemy vessels, couldn't keep up with thousands of pieces of debris flying in all directions. "They're using our size against us," Greetal realized as he watched 2 of his capital ships collide while trying to avoid a spinning asteroid. "Small units, break formation and pursue those fighters." But that was exactly what Kane had hoped they would do. As the alien fleet broke apart to chase human fighters, the second phase of the plan began. Dr. Jennifer Walsh's psychological warfare team had spent months studying recordings of alien communications, learning how each species thought and what they feared most. Now they began broadcasting carefully crafted messages designed to exploit the ancient rivalries and cultural conflicts between the allied species. "Vorthak vessels," came a transmission that appeared to originate from Christek ships, "your formation is blocking our targeting solutions. Move aside so real warriors can fight." "Christek forces," replied another fake message that seemed to come from Nexri ships, "your energy weapons are hitting our vessels. Control your fire or we will consider you hostile." Within minutes, the carefully coordinated alien fleet began to fall apart. Species that had put aside centuries of conflict to unite against humanity suddenly found themselves suspicious of their allies. When a Christek ship accidentally fired on a Vorthak vessel while trying to hit a human fighter, the old hatreds flared back to life. The final phase came when Admiral Kane's main fleet emerged from hiding behind Earth's moon. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, using technologies borrowed from every species in the enemy fleet. They had Vorthak armor and Christek weapons, Nexri shields and Altrian engines, all combined in ways that their original creators had never imagined. Captain Rebecca Stone commanded the UES Defiance, the same ship that had made first contact with the Vorthak years earlier. Her vessel now carried weapons that could manipulate gravity itself, creating localized distortions that turned the enemy fleet's own momentum against them. "Target their command structure," Kane ordered. "Don't destroy them, capture them. We need them alive to spread the word about what happened here." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. Human ships danced through the chaos of the alien fleet like they could predict every move their enemies would make. When alien commanders tried to regroup their forces, human psychological warfare teams sent messages that convinced different species they were being betrayed by their allies. The end came not with a glorious explosion, but with quiet surrender. One by one, alien commanders realized they were fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every exchange. Their advanced weapons were being copied and improved in real time. Their tactical formations were being turned into traps. Their own allies were becoming suspicious of each other. Elder Zephai's final transmission reached the remaining council members as human ships began accepting surrenders throughout the system. "We warned you that humanity's greatest weapon was never their technology. It was their refusal to believe that anything was impossible. You tried to stop them with force, never understanding that force was simply another lesson for them to learn." As the human fleet moved beyond the outer rim to establish new colonies among distant stars, the galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. Humanity had proven that sometimes the youngest voice in the room carries the most dangerous truth, that the word impossible is just another word for challenge accepted. The age of human expansion had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same.